1.3. Oh, I'm not so sure if I fixed this or not. Do you see what I mean? So, if you're just listening to silence, that's okay. I'll figure it. I guess in the very KUCA Conway, we'll have an hour of silence. Well, I guess it's more like 15 or about 45 minutes now. But if that's the case, that's the case. And my supervisor is not here right now to make sure that I'm, or to not just isn't here. He's working on the basketball games across. I think I don't know where the basketball team is today. But I'm pretty sure that he's there somewhere. He's there right now. So it's just me listening to the radio station, and I'm not 100% sure. I don't need to explain, I guess, all the technical terms. One, because I'm not 100% sure I understand them myself. But regardless, I think I'm on the air right now, so I'm just going to talk like I am. And if it's silent, then I'll fix it next week. If not, then I don't know. I'm pretty sure I could run this story regardless next week, if I really needed to, for my radio listeners, and maybe not for my YouTube listeners, but for my radio ones, this would probably work for them. But again, just so now my YouTube viewers can know, today I'm going to do free agent issues and advice for all 32 teams in the NFL, starting with the NFC and then going to the AFC. I'm going to base a lot of my opinion off of a USA Today sports report from Nate Davis, who I guess is with USA Today Sports. And I'm going to base most of my stuff off this article, or at least my background knowledge. But I will be drifting from the article, one, because I've got my own opinion and I care about football enough to think that maybe I might have a small bit of fandom expertise. And, this is my show, so I can do whatever I want. So that's my plan. Yeah, I had the Angels winning the World Series last year, so last week. So, I'm going to stick by that. I still think it's a good prediction. But anyway, let's go on to today's show. Last week's was good enough that we can just forget about it. I feel like I'd have a lot more liberty right now because I'm not 100% sure if I'm talking into the radio microphone right now. But it doesn't matter. My grandparents will still like this. So let's talk about the NFC East. Of course, there are 4 teams in the NFC East: the Philadelphia Eagles, Dallas Cowboys, New York Giants, and Washington Redskins. Each of them are good, and each of them are bad. And most of them are bad. The NFC East has become a very bad division, especially last year, where the Eagles were the only really relevant team. I guess the Cowboys had a shot, at the end on Week 17 with Kyle Orton as their quarterback. But still, this is a division that overall, up and down, needs to get better. And I'll just really quickly run through some of the prominent free agents for the Dallas Cowboys that are going to be leaving the team. We'll start with the Cowboys first, because most people like the Cowboys, and they're the first one that comes up on the USA Today article, and the one that it just will work best with me to talk about first. So, talking about the Dallas Cowboys, they've released a guy named Everett Brown, Ryan Cook, Phil Costa, Jason Hatcher, Danny McCray, Ernie Sims, Anthony Spencer, Brian Waiters, and Jarris Wynn. These are all of their starters that are leaving. Most of those people are defensive linemen. And in addition, they possibly might lose DeMarcus Ware, who might be a salary cap casualty, which would be absolutely detrimental for the Dallas Cowboys defense, which, according to this article, says that they were the 32nd ranked defense in the league in 2013. And I think that was not even more. That was extremely obvious when the Cowboys played the Broncos in like Week 7 or something, and the final score was like, it was just tremendous. It was like 49 to 42 or something like that. So, anybody who watched the Dallas Cowboys last year is really recognizing the weakness of that defense. And let me check really fast. Of all the people, there are 4 defensive linemen that are free agents that might be leaving or have already left for the Dallas Cowboys. And so even if those guys were staying, I would say that's an extreme position of need for them. They need to get some better defensive linemen in that system. I think rule number 1 is to try to get DeMarcus Ware back. Do whatever you can with the salary cap to make sure he comes back, because by and large he is probably the best player on that team. In addition, Jason Hatcher, who is a defensive tackle for them, is an excellent player. They cannot afford to lose him. He's coming off of his first Pro Bowl as well. So anytime you've got good players and a terrible defense, you probably want to keep them. I think Dallas's number 1 priority is to keep those guys, and number 2 priority is to get more people to help them out. As for my guys like Miles Austin, I think it's okay to cut them. They're not doing very much. And, the Dallas offense in general is pretty stable. I feel like Tony Romo's Again, I talked about Tony Romo a couple of weeks ago, but I think that he's a decent quarterback, and he's definitely not the problem with the Cowboys. It's their defense that needs to step it up. So finally, in conclusion for the Dallas Cowboys, you got to re-sign DeMarcus Ware, you've got to re-sign Anthony Hatcher, and you've got to find some big-name free agents. The people I would suggest would be T.J. Ward from the Cleveland Browns, who's had an excellent season. Not only was he a monster for the University of Oregon, he has just played extremely well. I think he had something along the lines of 90 tackles or so. I held him in, I think, 2 of my individual IDP fantasy football leagues this year, and he tore it up for me. He would get an average of about 8 points a game, which is pretty significant considering the fact that for us a tackle is a point. So he'd probably get about he'd get about 8 tackles a game, which for us was awesome. For my fantasy team, it was awesome. For the Dallas Cowboys, it can be awesome. That's who I would suggest them picking up. The New York Giants. I'm not going to run through the list of all the people that they're going to be releasing. I'll run through some of them really quickly. John Beeson, Andre Brown, not releasing, but are free agents. They're Josh Brown, their kicker. Andre Brown, the running back. John Beeson, their middle linebacker. Oh, Brandon Myers, Hakeem Nicks, Sean Rogers, Aaron Ross, Terrell Thomas, Justin Tucker, and Corey Webster are all names that even somebody who doesn't follow the New York Giants like I do just immediately spring to mind. They're going to be losing a ton of people. The problem, I think the New York Giants, even though they're losing a lot of people on defense, I don't think it's really a big problem for them to try to find help on the defensive side of the football. To me, it just doesn't seem like they really struggled that bad. I know the biggest problem was with turnovers, and I know that the biggest problem with that was Eli Manning. And so what needs to basically happen is people need to take pressure off of him. I think the offense needs to be a little bit more balanced, and I saw the New York Giants played much better football last year when Andre Brown came back from injury and held the mainstay for the Giants offense. And so I would suggest to the New York Giants to do whatever you can to get Andre or a decent running back in the organization for this year. It looks like LeGarrette Blount, Lamar Miller, who else will be on the market? Occasional other guys, maybe Trent Richardson or Donald Brown from the Colts. These guys are going to be good players. They're going to take the pressure off of Eli Manning, because I think that even though the defense is going to lose a lot of guys, if they can re-sign Beeson and Tuck at team-friendly prices, then I think that they're going to be able to they're going to be capable of making sure that the defense stays at the level it was last year. And so I'm going to say for the New York Giants, re-sign Andre Brown. If not, find Lamar Miller or LeGarrette Blount in free agency so you can continue to take pressure off of Eli Manning and just try to re-sign Beeson and Justin Tuck. That'll be the best thing for you guys to do. The Philadelphia Eagles are going to be a little bit less problematic than in terms of losing free agents than their other 2 division leaders. The main name on this is Michael Vick, who we've kind of figured out is probably just going to be okay. The Eagles are going to be okay cutting him. I think Nick Foles obviously is the quarterback of the future for the Philadelphia Eagles, and anybody who played fantasy football or at least watched ESPN from time to time pretty much understands that the Eagles are safe at quarterback position. So I think they can let Michael Vick go. They've already re-signed the receivers, Riley Cooper and Jeremy Maclin, so that's been really good for them. They've also extended Jason Peters and Jason Key, or I don't know how to pronounce this dude's name, their center. They've extended those contracts. Peters has been a mainstay for that organization, has been a great lead blocker for LaShawn McCoy, and I think those 2 players are instrumental in getting that running game going, so that's been an excellent choice. There's 2 safeties, 2 former University of Oregon safeties that are out right now in the NFL. They're going to be free agents, and that's Jairus Byrd and T.J. Ward. And these are people that I think Chip Kelly coached. If I'm not mistaken, I know he didn't get Byrd, but he was there. Byrd was a part of the team when Kelly was offensive coordinator, and I think Ward may have been coached by. No, I think Ward graduated the year before Kelly came. But either way, Ward is in the same position that Byrd is. And if the Eagles could get some more defensive solidify their defense with just a good hard hitting and good tackling safety like Bird or Ward would be. That'd be extremely beneficial to their organization. Again, I see the I see the Philadelphia Eagles being the team that wins this division. They have so few casualties of the free agency They have so few casualties of free agency, and so few so few really problems except on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that a good, solid tackling safety is the solution to their problems. You go to the Washington Redskins. They're losing big names like Fred Davis, possibly losing big names like Fred Davis, London Fletcher, Josh Gorman, Santana Moss, Brian Arakpo, although he's been franchise tagged, so I take that one back, and Nick Barnett. So again, a lot of defensive players for the Washington Redskins are going to be gone. The biggest problem I think for the Washington Redskins is although Arakpo was an excellent player and they absolutely needed to get him back, they franchised him and he's in a position where he really can't. They don't really have a lot of stability or ability to go out and get new free agents, and so the biggest problems would be for the Washington Redskins are the fact that they just don't really have a lot of cap room. So their biggest needs, I would say, off the top of my head, are a wide receiver. They needed a wide receiver to complement Pierre Garcon because it honestly sometimes seems like he's the only target in that Washington Redskins passing game, and so they probably would need to get him. USA Today suggests that they get Brandon LaFell, Andre Roberts, or Emmanuel Sanders. I don't know if they have the ability to get any of those guys. Maybe LaFell. I kind of like him in this scenario. Emmanuel Sanders is not going to be available for whatever price they're going to need him at. I think Emmanuel is a great compliment to Antonio Brown in the Steelers organization. I would honestly say the Steelers are probably going to get him and get him for more than the Redskins can afford to pay him with their salary cap restrictions. So right now I'm going to say that Brandon LaFell would probably be the best thing they could do. And finally just getting a good guard so that they could just to plug that hole for like a few 1 to 3 seasons, and that would be something that would just be excellent for that organization. So they could possibly pick a guard in the later rounds of the draft and seal up that hole long term as they choose to develop him. I think that's what the Redskins would probably be best to do. But even as I run through this list of the NFC East, I'm not seeing a lot of change from last year. I tend to think the status quo. In general, I tend to think the status quo in pretty much every sport, and I think you heard this especially in my baseball report last week. I tend to think the status quo is going to continue forever, and I know that's not always the case, but it usually is what happens. And I think that even this division, as I run through all the people that the Giants in particular are losing, I don't see them making a really large stretch. Making a run at the division. Cowboys are in a lot of turmoil. They've got to get their defense together. And honestly, they should re-sign these, Hatcher and who did I say earlier? DeMarcus Ware. They need to re-sign these guys because that's just going to be very helpful to them. But re-signing guys from a defense that is terrible is not the only solution. And as I, briefly mentioned in my dissection of that defense, they're going to need a lot of guys to get into that because their offense isn't the problem. The defense is what's ruining the team. And the Redskins don't have a lot of money to really make a change. So again, I don't need to. This isn't a time where I'm going to predict things, but I don't see any way that any team but the Philadelphia Eagles can get going in that division. So, that's the NFC East. It took a little bit more time than I thought, but I'm enjoying it while I go. I'm going to talk about the NFC North, and then I think I'll take a short commercial break at the quarter point in the NFL. So let's talk about the NFC North, who they're losing.